Hello and welcome back to Lyre. We'll be continuing where we left off, which, if you recall, is with Richter stuck in the cell. And he recently had a vision of sorts about his, or actually not even his, um, about this sort of deity of the continent who basically told him, hey, you have this power that you can see, past events and stuff like that. So you kind of have to work on it. So yeah. Also, I'm a deity. Haha. Anyways, but yeah. So I guess he's gonna have to work on that right now. And I believe that there is going to be a little bit of a coronation happening soon, so we'll have to see that too. But anyways, without further ado, let's continue Lyre. Chapter 8, Day 23. Lyle's eyes feel heavy as he steadily wakes up. Yet another night of restless sleep. As he shifts his legs around underneath the warm covers, cold air flows under them, sending a fresh feeling up his body. His feet are cold and he brings his legs closer to himself. The heat from his body should be enough to keep him warm, not to mention his fur. However, it feels like the cold has been getting worse. He hugs one of his pillows tightly to his body to keep warm. The feeling of warmth that is usually carried with him has been diminished these past few days. The rest of his senses has finally started to kick in, and a strong sensation begins to overtake him. It's a scent. Richter. He's noticed that every time he shifts around in his bed, Richter's scent evades his senses. It's been a few days since their intimacy, yet his smell still lingers. It's not a bad smell by all means. Richter usually smelled so nice. The scent isn't artificial either. It gives off a natural feeling. Thinking about Richter causes a flood of recent memories to flow through his mind. For the past couple of days, every time he wakes up, he feels as if each memory smacks him in the face all over again, reminding him about everything that's happened with no remorse. It almost feels unbelievable, and sometimes he'll wake up in the morning, and, as he's still coming to, he'll feel a moment of pure bliss and hope that it was all just a nightmare. It wasn't a nightmare, though. If only it was. His eyes are starting to well up with tears, and he doesn't know if they are watering from waking up, or if it's because of sorrow. To be honest, most of his worries come from thinking about Richter. He feels awful knowing that he wasn't able to go and visit Richter yesterday. Lately, the whole castle has been in an uproar, and he's barely had a chance to sit down. He knows that Richter is strong, but he just can't bear the thought of him thrown down there. Richter is definitely being fed, but it's still a terrible place to be. And he doesn't deserve it. Sometimes he wishes that he could take his place and be the one that was thrown in a cell. He cares for Richter an awful lot, but somehow that doesn't feel like it has anything to do with this notion. He wholeheartedly believes that Richter was not the one who did it. Knowing this makes a sense of justice swell up inside of him. He cannot allow such a form of injustice to happen. He'll do anything he can to help Richter. Not just because of love, but because of loyalty. Lyall adjusts himself to get up from bed, and the scent invades his nose once more. It's almost intoxicating and reminds him of all the fond memories he's made so far. With his free paw, he traces his finger from his groin across his navel, up to his abdomen. That night when Richter was inside of him was the closest he had ever been with anyone, both physically and emotionally. He had never truly felt such strong feelings like those until now. He's sure of it. Never been so connected with someone. Someone who truly understands him. The bed beneath him creaks as he slides his legs off the end and swings them down onto the ground. His padded feet brush the cold floor and send a shiver up his spine as a chilly draft blows over his naked body. This doesn't worry him too much though, knowing that the air will eventually warm up as the day marches on. Carefully, Lyall stands up and stretches his legs by walking around, giving his body a chance to fully wake up. He only slept for about 3 hours instead of the usual 4 or 5. He feels refreshed though, and that's all that matters. It's always the short rests that feel the longest. He takes a few steps around his bed and looks out the window. Crisp snow has piled up on the sill, and the morning sun shimmers through the top of it like crystals. The room has a dull and cozy glow to it, which contrasts the colorful morning sky outside. Lyall swiftly walks to the other side of the room, near the door, and puts on a long cotton coat. Lifting the coat up and sliding his arms into the sleeves allows him to get a whiff of his own body. It's not a terrible smell, but he could definitely use a bath. The last one that he took was the quick one that he had right before everything fell apart. He'd like to visit Ritcher later and wouldn't want to smell unclean. He'll also have to attend Prince Andreas's coronation. That's supposed to happen sometime this morning, so he should have time afterwards. Lyall then takes a pair of underwear and slides them on, along with a thick pair of trousers. Taking another look around his room, he notices that everything is still the way it was that night. The fire is out and the bed sheets are disheveled, but everything is still in its place. Even the ballroom clothes that were thrown on the ground in a pile are still bundled up on the floor against his bed. It's like a memory frozen in time. Gathering up a few things, he made a motion for the door before noticing something. There's a piece of parchment face down on the ground that's been slid under the door. He bends over and picks it up, flipping it over to read. Leif wants to meet with him after the coronation. Meet me in my study after the coronation. I need to talk to you about something in private, please, Leif. Why? Whatever it is, he hopes it isn't more bad news. He walks over to his dresser and unlocks the top drawer, throwing the letter inside. Whatever he wants to talk about most likely has nothing to do with what's going on, but this letter gives off a feeling of urgency. He'll most likely have to visit him before seeing Richter. Not only that, but he still has work to do everywhere else, along with figuring out how to save Richter from being strung up by his neck. He shakes this horrible thought out of his mind as he goes for the door. He takes a few steps out into the hall and looks left and right, hoping that nobody is coming. The entire corridor is empty as he strides in the direction of the stairs leading up to the bathing room. He's clothed, of course, but he would rather be alone with his thoughts right now. The private bath next to his room is ideal, but right now he'd rather use the one near Richter's room. It's comfortable and people rarely use it. Most things in the guest wing are usually better quality. It's honestly a good thing that the coronation is today. Everyone in the castle is probably getting ready or already outside of the throne room. Even the staff is most likely prepping for some posh thing afterwards. Lyall wouldn't really know. He's never been to a coronation. The cold yet fresh air wafts onto his face as he emerges from the inner halls. Weather around this time of the year is cold enough to chap his nose badly. He brings his paw up to his snout and breathes in to them as he walks down each twist and turn of the hall. Right as he's coming to the bathing room door, he spots Richter's room down the hall. The door is still propped open. They're probably still conducting a search of the place. He would have been a part of it, but they asked him not to intervene since he was so close with Richter. He was a bit offended by it, but tried not to let it bother him. Swiftly, he slips into the bathroom, escaping the cold. His padded feet immediately touch the damp floor, and he has to stop himself from slipping as he steps through the doorway. The room echoes as the door shuts behind him with a soft thud. Everything smells the way it usually does, and the room is cast in a glow of colorful light from the windows above. The white marble shines even brighter because of it. Walking over to the levers, he pulls on the ones he usually uses. He pulls the water on all the way down and then takes the one that says oils and pulls it down just a little bit. Along with pulling the soap lever down, of course. He watches as the water begins to funnel out of the faucets at the top. The scent of coconuts and natural plant aromas invades his senses as the water splashes to the bottom of the already damp pool. He He begins to take off his clothes and sets them on the bench nearest to the door. Nobody is in here right now, so there's no need to go to the changing room. Gently, he steps into the tub and lowers himself into the hot water. It's a relaxing feeling that envelops his whole body. He dunks his head under the water and scrubs with his paws all around his fur. He brings his head up from underneath the water and imagines that he now looks like a wet mop. He shakes his head a bit, splattering the water everywhere and slightly drying his head fur. After that, he lays back against the wall of the pool and lets the water rush around him. This environment allows him to truly think. At least, as long as nobody bothers him. After a few moments of sitting here in the pool of warm water, he realizes something. Even though he has the determination to do it, how is he going to help Richter? He's no detective. Damn it. He begins to slowly scrub himself down, cleaning himself thoroughly. Going around and asking questions would certainly help, but who would he start with? He contemplates for a moment before remembering something. The dagger that was found at the scene of the crime has intrigued him since he first laid eyes on it. It looked like an ordinary dagger at first glance, but something seemed off about it. Unique in a way. He has to figure that out sooner or later. Where did the dagger come from? Maybe he would figure out who the owner was. Eren. Eren will be the best person to talk to. He supplies the best weapons in the village, and is a master of his craft. He's made weapons for the highest nobles around, including being the one who crafted Raynar's sword. He should know at least something. Lyall rises a bit from the water with a feeling of triumph, now knowing that he has a clearer goal in mind. He'll clear Richter's name. He has to. He finishes cleaning himself and gets out of the bath. His fur is now sleek and shines a rich brown color in the morning light. Water drips off his body and onto the slippery floor, creating small puddles around him. He walks over to the levers and resets them, allowing the water to stop and the pool to drain. Walking over to the bench, he takes a dry towel off the clean pile and begins to lightly dry his fur, but not too much. He doesn't want to get rid of the oils in his fur that help keep it shiny and smooth. Once he's done patting himself down with the towels, he places it in the basket and broadens his stance. He then proceeds to shake his body, mostly his head, almost like how a dog would when they are wet. Water flings off of him, creating a thick mist cloud, and his fur fluffs up for a moment before laying back down on his body. He wouldn't dream of doing something like this in front of someone. He usually tends to keep his canine tendencies to himself and refrains from acting in such a way in front of people. After that little bit of theatrics, he dresses himself, the dry clothes sticking to his damp body, and then leaves through the door. After laying down and allowing himself to fully dry off, Lyall rises from his bed and begins to get ready for the ceremony. It's best if he arrives a little bit early. Looking in on one of the mirrors on his wall, he runs his paws through his fur. As untamable as it is, he'd like for his fur to look as decent as possible. After tidying up his fur, he walks over to his armor stand. His ceremonial armor is loosely thrown onto it from the night before. He takes his full bodysuit and slides it up his legs and around his torso, sliding his arms into the sleeves. It's warm and lined with leather on the inside. He then takes the breastplate, gorget, and connected pauldrons and puts them on. He's gotten a lot better at putting his armor on by himself over the years. It's a relatively easy set of armor to put on, considering it's mostly meant to be ornamental. The armor that he would wear in actual combat is somewhere in the trunk, and that's very hard to put on. It would be easier with two people, maybe a squire, but Lyall refused having a squire when the opportunity was given to him. He doesn't entirely need the help, and he has no wisdom to offer yet. He just had to accept that he would be wasting their time. Raynar wasn't upset about it though. He rarely ever got too upset at things. Locking the last bracer onto his wrist, he stands in the mirror and looks himself over. His armor may look a bit ridiculous at times, but it's very comfortable and protects from the cold perfectly. He latches the cape onto his pauldrons and equips the sheath from his sword and goes to leave for the door, But just as he's about to leave, he looks at the helmet still sitting on the armor rack. It's a typical knight's helmet fitted to a wolf's head, and even styled to look like a wolf. Every knight in the Royal Guard has one styled after their species, but nobody ever wears them. They're extremely uncomfortable and not really needed for our day-to-day duties. Most knights either carry them around under their arms or just don't even bother to bring them. For a moment, Lyall considers bringing it to the ceremony, but then reconsiders knowing that he won't even be on duty. Even as a captain, he'll most likely just get to hang back in the crowd and watch from the center of the room. He can't help but wonder if they planned it this way. Maybe they didn't want the one person who was closest to Richter planted right alongside the throne. Then again, nobody has really accused Lyall of anything yet. He steps through the door and out into the dim corridor. Thankfully, the throne room isn't too far from his bedchambers. He can even hear some distant chatter coming from where the throne room is. It's pretty far away, but his hearing is better than most. He starts walking down the hall with his paw relaxingly placed on the handle of his dagger. On his way, he passes a few people who are clearly making an effort to pay him no mind. Being one of the tallest people in the hallway can make it hard to blend in. It appears that most people are trying to avoid eye contact with him, though. He notices that when he makes eye contact with some people, they avert their eyes and continue to talk with whoever they're strolling with. He'll just have to get used to it. People will be people. More and more people clog the hall as he approaches the large doors leading into the throne room. Some of them he recognizes as nobility from nearby cities. There are a lot of lords and traders of all different shapes and sizes. He even spots a few heads of some smaller noble houses from the west. They're wearing their crests proudly and chatting amongst themselves. There's even a small band off to the side, talking with each other and tuning their instruments. Everyone is standing up against the walls and pillars, allowing the light to beam through the windows onto the floor. It shines brightly and illuminates the whole room, giving each plant growing on the wall a healthy glow. Lyall desperately tries to spot anyone in the crowd that he knows, so he's not standing around awkwardly. Suddenly he hears someone a short distance away say his name. "Sir Lyall." Lyall turns around to see Kadaj standing alone, his paws behind his back. He has a thoughtful expression on his face. The charismatic attitude he carries is currently absent. Hello, Lord Kadaj. I hope things are well." "As well as they can be." He looks at the ground in discomfort. "I also hope that things are good with you, given everything that's happened." Lyall would start venting about his problems right here and right now, but he decided to give the simple answer. Kadaj doesn't know him too well, so he'll try to spare him the details. "Nothing's been great, but all I can do is keep moving forward." "That's all any of us can do. Unfortunately for myself, I am unable to go anywhere. Being a hostage and all that." He says that last bit in a joking tone, but Lyall takes it very seriously. "Well, we have to keep an open mind when it comes to these things. Surely you understand how everyone's suspicions are fairly placed." "Oh, of course. It makes plenty of sense." He says this with a hint of sarcasm sprinkled with sincerity. "I am willing to be compliant for the sake of order. Lord Richter and I have talked about this before, and he knows how passionate I am when it comes to that." He swings his paws to the front and clasps them, arms drooping down while bouncing on his heels. "By the way, how is our mutual friend? I really hope that he's okay." "He's as good as anyone can be in a prison cell, but last I saw him, he seemed to be taking better than most. Richter's strong, so I know he'll get through it." Their conversation has been lowered to a whisper as Lyall begins to speak of Richter. "He's definitely the best of us when it comes to that. Something about him has always struck me as different. He's skilled politically, but still holds strength in other areas." "What do you mean by that?" "Well, I don't know much about his past, but I'd assume that since he's not of noble blood, There's something interesting to be said of it? Lyall wonders why Kadaj is bringing this up. It is a bit interesting. Most of what I know is that Richter was a commoner that rose to a high position of power. Something about it being like a game to him. He never talks about it much. He doesn't seem to be someone fixated on the past. No, he doesn't. At least, not his own. Yeah. Lyall looks down with a bit of sadness in his eyes. You really care for him, don't you? What? This blunt statement takes him a bit off guard. To be fair, he was spacing out a bit. Sorry, I didn't mean to pry. It's just, I've been hearing people talk. Yes, well, people talk. Yes, I know, but I don't care for that much. Talking is one thing, but seeing is another. Mainly, I noticed the way that you look at him. I don't mean to offend, but it's blatantly obvious. Lyall shifts uncomfortably, not liking where this chat is going. The blush on his face is clear as day. Where's this going? Please don't take this the wrong way. I have no intention of showing any form of judgment. Where I'm from, I also have someone that I care for deeply, as much as I hate to admit it. He says this last part under his breath. You'll never hear any judgment from me. I'm only here to help, and I know how much you care for him. Lyall makes a puzzled and embarrassed face. Whatever anybody thinks is up to them. I appreciate your concern, Lord Kadaj, but we don't need your sympathies. Lyall! Kadaj suddenly takes him by the arm and brings him to a secluded corner of the room, bringing his tone to a hissing whisper. I don't want to see Richter swinging by his neck. Or losing it. He loosens his grip on Lyall's arm and lowers his head. Lyall sees a look of doom appear on his expression. I am not entirely sure you know how these things work, but this doesn't look good for him. Or you. I know that, and I'm pretty sure that I know how these things work. Lyall is slowly getting more and more annoyed as the conversation continues. Have you ever participated in a trial? No. Have you ever witnessed a trial? I've witnessed one, but it wasn't for anything big. Maybe Kadaj is right. He might not be prepared for all of this after all. So, you understand how quick something like this can be. They're never quick. This one will be. He was found at the scene of the crime in almost an impossible circumstances. Accused of killing a king. Not to mention, he's not of noble blood. If it wasn't for his rank, he would have most likely been killed on the spot. He's right. Lyall recalls the night when Bjorn tried to kill Richter. Sometimes he forgets how important blood is. Not to mention his foreign status. If it was a common castle servant or run-of-the-mill guard, then it wouldn't be that big of a problem. His status makes this 10 times worse. I'd like to think that he didn't do it, but even if he's innocent and found guilty, Lyre will still end up executing a foreign ambassador. And depending on where it goes, it could lead to all-out war. And if he did do it, then it means something much worse. He didn't do it. This escapes from Lyall's mouth like a growl, surprising even him. Believe what you want, but that won't help him. I know, but he didn't. I just know it. So that leaves me? That's not what I was implying. I'm sorry, am I interrupting something? Leif walks up next to Lyall and looks up at the two of them with a curious gaze. No, Sareed and I were just talking about Lord Richter. Leif dons an annoyed expression. Yes, I'm sure everyone is. He turns to Lyall. Can I please borrow you for a moment? Both Leif and Lyall look to Kadaj. Do you mind? No, it's quite all right. There will be plenty of time to talk later. He swiftly turns to Leif and nods. Lord Leif? Leif's eyes light up for just a moment and Lyall can tell that he's flattered. Actually, it's just Leif. As you please. He looks to Lyall. I hope to speak with you again soon, Sir Lyall. Sure. With that, Kadaj turns around and walks off towards the front of the throne room. Leif takes Lyall by the paw and leads him over to another corner of the room. Lyall has to hunch over a bit, but follows behind. Lyall, I haven't had the chance to say this, but I'm really sorry about everything that's happened. I know that our king was like a father to you, and he was a dear friend to me for a very long time. His little gloved wing is still gripping Lyall's paw tightly. Not only that, but our friend from Erin is accused of being the killer. Lyall can tell that his voice is a bit weak. What I'm trying to say is that I know how you feel. And our poor prince is in a lot of pain because of all of this. He pulls on Lyall's paw and brings him closer to his face. So please refrain from speaking about these things in public. This is probably the most worked up Lyall has ever seen Leif. He lets go of his paw and relaxes his body a bit. Alright, I'm sorry. Why shouldn't I? Because right now we need to keep things a bit under control. He lowers his voice to the softest whisper. Lyall has to lean in to hear him, even with this enhanced hearing. If anybody hears these little conversations, word will spread. Public opinion can be a huge detriment to something like this. And we can't have this situation delve into more chaos than it already has. Do you understand what I'm saying? I suppose. You need to keep a low profile. Feel free to ask questions to those you truly trust, but try to stay away from the gossip and rumors. Oh, it wasn't like that. As much as I don't personally trust Kadaj, especially at the moment, he wasn't trying anything like that. It's small, but I do get the feeling that he wants to prevent Richter's head being put on a spike. Either that, or he just wants the peace that he's always preaching about. Or both. Leif shuffles slightly. This is why I wanted to talk to you in private later. I think I may have found something. Something that has to do with Richter. I wanted to show it to you first, though. What is it? Leif grapes his wings together tightly. I can't talk about it here. Lyall crosses his arms with an impatient look on his face. He didn't think things had to be this private. Okay. I'll head straight to your study after this. Got it? Right. Goodbye for now. Leif scuttles off into the crowd of people and takes his place at the front. Given his height, it makes sense. Lyall goes to take his place in the crowd, yet he overhears something from a group of people. An old lord talking to another man of similar qualities. From what I hear, he was assigned to the traitor as a bodyguard, like King Raynar himself. A glorified servant, if you ask me. It can't be that bad, can it? Yes, well, it grew to be something more than that. Lyall slowly walks up to the man, his paw still resting on his dagger. According to the rumors, they've become something like blasphemous lovers. Honestly, I sometimes wonder why he was even given the rank of captain in the first place. Ahem. The first noble turns around with a smarmy grin on his face. The second and third already saw Lyall approaching and quickly avert their gaze with embarrassed expressions. I couldn't help but overhear you speaking ill of Lord Richter. And myself. The fact that Lord Richter is in a cell won't stop me from letting him fight his own battles, but you've also insulted me. I would advise you not to talk about things that you know nothing about. Unless you wish to fight the one of whom you spoke so rudely. The man grumbles to himself and straightens his jacket. Please. The lord you speak of isn't even the lord. And despite your rank, you're a northern bumpkin from a dying family. I wouldn't be throwing your strength around if I were you, Lord Reed. It's Captain Reed to you. And I'll defend myself against anybody who speaks behind my back like a coward. My allegiance is to the kingdom and its people, but I will not bow to the likes of you. With that, he turns around and walks away. One of the idiots says something, but he doesn't listen. They can have the last word if they want, but he's not going to stoop to their level. He knows that this completely goes against Leif's advice, but he's not just going to let people get away with stuff like that. He still has pride. If they want to gossip about him or Richter, they better make sure that he's out of earshot. Lyall moves up a bit more towards the center of the crowd and stands in front of a tall bull and bear. He doesn't want to block anyone's view. After about a minute of waiting, the noise begins to calm down. Everyone in the hall is silent, aside from a few whispers. Lyall can see Liz standing off to the side of the throne. Her silhouette is bathed in a golden glow. Across from her is someone in a green robe. They're holding a small pillow, and on it sits the crown. Raynar's crown. It's probably been fit to Andreas's head, but it's still definitely the same crown. It's been passed down through the Ossian family for as long as anybody knows. A door opens to the right side of the room, and there stands Andreas. His face is dull and emotionless, like a statue. He's also wearing a gaudy cloak that Lyall remembers hearing about. It's a wool cloak of rich green color. The collar is adorned with purple feathers, and the inside is lined with purple fur. This is a ceremonial cloak that all kings wear when they are crowned. He's accompanied by 2 guards, who walk him up to the throne and then depart. Andreas slowly turns to face the crowd. All eyes are upon him, and everyone is silent. The musicians have already begun to play their symphony, and it fills the hall with angelic noise. The suspense flows out over the audience like a wave as they wait for Andreas to speak. I had not wished to be here, standing before all of you on this day. He pauses shortly into his speech. His voice is a bit shaky, yet he continues. But the day has come, and I cannot lie by saying that I had not prepared for it. Every prince has this responsibility put on them since the day they are born. It terrifies us, it haunts us, and yet we endure. Not for our sake or our father's, for the sake of the people. Our people. He gestures off to his side in the direction of the castle town. Today I speak for the pride of Lyre, the pride of its kingdom and its people. History has finally crossed paths with destiny, and we as a kingdom must band together as one to ensure our survival and to take control. He clenches his fist with determination. Liz is looking upon him proudly, and everyone in the crowd is practically holding their breath. I have but one dream, one goal to strive behind. It is a promise to myself and a sacred vow to all of you. I will not lead you astray. I will take action, and there will be no compromise. We will not buckle, break, or yield in the face of those who mean to put us down. We as a kingdom will dig our heels in and push back. You will give me all you have, and in return, I will give you everything. His voice wavers a bit, but he keeps going. I will ensure that our kingdom prospers, and I will make no excuses. I am not a man of hollow promises. This is my vow. I, Andreas Ossian, son of Raynar Ossian, swear before the lands of Tigran and all of their splendor, that I will leave this kingdom greater than I found it. Let the higher gods bear witness. We will persevere. After taking a moment of pause, he looks down and nods to the person in the cloak. They begin to speak towards him in a soft voice that somehow echoes throughout the hall. Andreas Ossian, son of Raynar Ossian and Elena Ossian, rightful ruler of the Lyrian throne. Do you proclaim today that you will protect the people of Lyre and guide them towards a better future? Are you prepared to follow and fulfill the responsibilities of a true monarch by keeping the peace, upholding the law, and administering justice? There is a short pause before he confirms. I will. The hooded figure slowly holds out the pillow. Liz steps forward and takes the crown. She raises it up to place it on his head. I now pronounce you King Andreas Ossian, ruler of Lyre and one of the Holy Triad. The crown is placed upon his head and Liz steps back. May his rule be long and prosperous. The throne room erupts with applause. Lyall claps along with them, but notices something. Andreas could rarely be caught in a good mood. But an even rarer occurrence was to see him cry. These were not tears that would be shed after witnessing something beautiful. Nor were they tears of a proud leader. They were not tears of joy. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. So, yeah. Poor little Lyall. He misses his little human. His top. But yeah, thankfully he's not doing anything stupid, but he is wallowing in despair, which is kind of stupid in and of itself. But yeah. Also, the coronation. I assume that Andreas is indeed sad after having lost his father and having to basically become king, but I also assume that he's going to be a little shit about it, and he's going to lord over his power over everyone, including Lyall, probably Leif, probably Richter, probably all the guards, everyone. Regardless, he's gonna have power get to his head, as most people usually do. But yeah, back to Lyall. It's nice to see the wolf again. It's nice to see that he's still into the human. His top. It's funny that he's the bottom. Usually you see the wolf as the top in all of these stories, but he's actually the bottom in this one. But anyways, yeah. But yeah. Anyways, thank you all for watching / listening. If you would like to play Lyre yourself, you can find it over on itch, and you can find a direct link to it from the creator's Twitter page, which I will obviously link down in the description. And if you would like to support the project, you can find a link down to it in the description, and you will get early access to builds of Lyre as they come out. And you'll be able to see it before even I see it and before I read it and record it and put it on YouTube. So yeah, if you can't help yourself, then, by all means, support them on Patreon. But anyways, I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.